And we're back with the with Axis 0096, Nick at Night, and Build and Play, aka Bob, with our After Dark section, our question and answer session with the community, where the community can get a little spicy with some of its questions. So all these questions are taken from the community specifically. We have a limited time, so this is actually going to be a speed trial, as it were. We don't have too many questions as it is, though, so it should be okay. But those of you who are watching us live on Twitch or YouTube, you can ask a question. Just put in the brackets question and put your question in there. It can be about engineering. This is what we talked about before. For those of you who missed it, it'll be above the picture of Bob over there, Build and Play. You can click that link and go. And watch what we talked about before. But it can be about anything in Star Citizen. It can be about Bar Citizen. It can be about Quantas. It can be about lore. It doesn't matter. Just stuff that you want to know about Star Citizen. You want us to hear our opinion. Feel free to let us know. All right. So the first question comes from Parker GPS. Engineering question. What's so hard about making medium and big ships being stronger than fighters? I can answer this question. Because it's not about being stronger, it's about range and speed. Because if all ships have the same weapons, if those weapons do not have good, what's the dang term for this dang thing? Velocity. Yeah, they don't have velocity. If they don't have the velocity to basically travel and hit or be able to chase faster targets and smaller targets can avoid those fires, that fight pretty easily. And because they can avoid the fight and they can get out of the way, they can then hit back because they have the same weapons with the same range, which other ships cannot avoid. It's a lot easier to hit bigger ships, which means that smaller ships can hit bigger ships, but bigger ships struggle to hit smaller ships because of range and because of they both have the same range, but the velocities are slightly but the velocities are
right, and they can't calculate it.
Yeah. And crazily enough, the bullet velocities that we currently have in game in Star Citizen are already incredibly high. I mean, many of the bullets go like the Panthers, for example, the CFs.
1,800 meters a second.
1,800 meters a second. That is just mental if we look at real life projectiles. That is like incredibly fast, railgun level fast. So it is a tough sort of balancing thing. I think I kind of hope that like beam weapons and stuff will help out there as well. And I think once again the direction that they're going with, I personally still don't understand. They added master modes with the intention to make combat more like close range.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should have just never even added master modes, and they should have just added range limitations on smaller weapons, or bullet velocity sort of differences, because if fighters only have 1,200 meters of range, the fights will be closer. And if the fighters have a smaller power plant, and because of the smaller power plant, their laser weapons have slower velocity, for example, the fights will be closer and more like World War II without even forcing speeds of ships to be, in my opinion, absurdly low for ships in space.
This is the reason why so many people will talk about armor. Like armor a lot of people thought armor would be a good counter, because if you have certain armors on certain ships, a light fighter is not going to breach the armor of a capital ship. So it doesn't matter how many light fighters you have, you're never going to beat a capital ship. You need a larger ship to take on the capital ship, which means the light fighters are mostly annoying to larger capital ships, but you still need to deal with them, especially if you've got smaller ships around. And they can still do some screening and other things like that. There needs to be more of a, but the problem is that armor so far hasn't done that, and there are other solutions, but yeah.
And I think the smaller ships should still be able to damage larger ships in a certain way. Maybe like not be able to damage internal components because of the armor, but they should, in my opinion, be able to like disable their turrets, for example.
Shield emitters, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly, shield emitters, exactly like we saw in the Squadron trailer. And I think that way you also make sure that you don't create even more, crazy pay to win Idrises, which is currently already the case.
Yeah.
Because if those would just tank everything, that'd just not be any fun.
So it's about balance, but a lot of it. This has been my problem with how everything works in Star Citizen currently. Is it feels like Yogi does a lot of work, but always feels like Yogi is giving us like a piece, like one piece of a
Yeah,
7-part puzzle, and saying,
Yes,
"Give us
and the
feedback on this 7-part puzzle." And it's like, I only have one piece. How can I give you
Yeah.
feedback on one piece when you're missing engineering, you're missing armor, you're missing
Proper maelstrom.
proper
But
maelstroms, you know.
you hit it. We now have at least the classifications of the types of ships. Then we need to start thinking about like speed of the ships, speed of the weapons. That's where the next thing starts to play. And then to your point, like how these all play in. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone is just praying for the day when, I mean, we all played Eve. I'm sure all of us did at some point, where it was like ship up was always the command, right? You saw something bigger, you had to ship out.
Yeah.
Now it's like ship down, right? Everyone getting to light fighters. There's no reason to group up. Like 8 people in light fighters is better than 8 people in an Idris.
Yeah.
You know, that's just
Right now, it's mostly role play and fun factor. It's easier to group people up together in a big ship, but it's not really tactical to do so.
yeah.
I mean, currently the best way to run like security ops, for example, would be to just have 2 Idrises with one pilot and one maybe one extra crew member aboard to control the door,
Yeah.
and the rest of the people just sit in the fighters because you do want the range of the Idris.
Yeah.
And then, get out of the Idris every time. So, the ship is used, but nobody's going to man a turret because a turret is genuinely like
Worse.
in PvE at least, PvP, sorry, completely useless.
Yeah. All
Against
right.
smaller ships.
We only have don't have ton more questions, so we can go through this pretty quickly, or we can take our time with these. Gin and Tonic makes a good question. So for those of you who don't know, Escape has been is a regular in Star Citizen community, and he has been beating the drum because his favorite concept of a ship, which I think is very reasonable, is what it's been called the rocket shrike. He calls it the rocket shrike. Shrikes
Okay.
have missiles,
Mm-hmm.
but what he wants is to replace the missile racks with dumbfire rockets, like the ones on the Harbinger or the
Right.
the Delta.
The ones on the real life, like Cobras and Apaches and stuff.
Yeah.
You just,
So
Right. Yeah.
to turn it into
yeah.
like a ground saturation like vehicle for attacking ground targets or cracking larger targets. So it becomes more of a, you can stop my missile, but can you stop 17 rockets coming at you at the same time? Hope your PDCs can handle all those.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gin Tonic asks, shouldn't the Shrike have a dumb fire rocket option? And my belief is still yes. And CIG has already shown us the way to do so, because they already have bespoke weapon changes you can do on different ships. You just need to have rocket pods which can swap out for those missile pods, or just have rocket pods just be a version of missile pods. Because right now they're weapons, not missiles. So because they function, they're literally, in terms of like the game code, it seems like they're more rigged up like a gun, like a cannon. So like the rocket that's firing isn't really firing a rocket; it's firing a cannon bolt, and it's tracking it like that rather than as a missile. So
that's strange.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was basically instant teleportation at times. Like you could fire a Delta, a rocket on a Delta, and it would like hit a target almost instantaneously as you fired it, because it was so fast. It was basically a beam weapon.
I mean, the Shrike being like a ground saturation, sort of like modern day helicopters, would really be. I think that would be a lot of fun, and also just would make like sort of like lore sense.
Yeah.
Since the Tevarin were, at the time of the wars at least, locked down to their one system, and were mostly focused on their home planet. Of course, they expanded out and stuff to other systems once they met humanity, but then, most of the wars against Tevarin were fought on the ground.
Yeah.
In contrast with like the Vandal, which is more space battle focused.
And they're more raiding focused. So like
hit and run. Yeah.
Being able to come in and just dump everything into like a military base and leave. That's much better than having to sit there and going, locking a target, firing, locking a target, firing. So,
Yeah.
So you were saying?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, I love the idea of rockets. I would hope, though, that let's go back and make the Shrike viable, especially when now, like right after they added the Saber Firebird, like that. I would love to see them rethink how missiles play, how many missiles things can fire off at any one point in time. Rockets need to be associated with that. I mean, the one thing I was going to say, the biggest detriment I've had to engineering this far that I still don't understand has been the times a single like EM missile, just one hits me and takes out all my components.
Yeah, just strips them.
And you're just like, yeah. And you're just like, what happened? So yeah, I think that especially once they get the ship speeds in place, rockets would be a really interesting mechanic. Again, another reason to draw people closer, because if you're dumbfiring them into a ship, you have to kind of arc them. I mean, yeah, it would be a really interesting gameplay loop.
Yeah. All right. Womblissimo asks, not really a question. Like I said, with mining gameplay and in line with Nick at Night, the engineers should be able to overclock the systems. The more they overclock the systems, the more power shields or weapons or engines. But harder it is to keep it in the green zone. So maybe some components that are better for overclocking but less hardy. And that's where crafting can come in. Crafting is a perfect solution to that, which is like you can create something that has different tiers, and each inside of those tiers they have different advantages. Like this thing can take more power, but it has a higher overheat, or it has a lower overheat limit, so it's going to overheat faster. So you can juice it for amazing performance shortly, but you're going to have to cool it off very quickly afterwards. So and then of course maybe you got these super elite versions of that, and so the higher the tier is, or the better the components you use, parts you use. Now that goes up, so you just got just a straight up better equipment that can handle all that juice and make it going. But it's like, yeah, it took you 14 months to be able to research all of those things and to gather all the materials to build it in the first place. Because at that point, it's gameplay. It's a little bit like engineering in Elite, which I know a lot of people would get turned off on, but like engineering Elite was like, you got to go do this story and this story and this story, whereas like crafting is more of a do it, just go what you need to do. If you get the right resources, you get the right people, you got it done. So
in theory, competition components should already have that kind of role. I don't really understand, but CIG didn't like make their shield HP pool higher, I guess. But I feel like those kind of components should especially be, in like 1v1 sort of fights. A competition component should, in my opinion, just outperform a military component, since a military component is made for larger battles and more versatile sort of scenarios. Also, Escapee? A 20 bomb?
Yeah, he dropped the 20 bomb because we talked about the rocket strike. He does that. He just goes, he just like, rocket strike!
That's insane.
All right. The next question comes from Escape, who asks, what is your opinion on balancing multi-crew weapons with quirks, whether it be by a bespoke value or subcomponent for the turret?
So quirks as in like things that the team has to manage?
Yeah, or like things that would be unique to that hull. Like so maybe like the turrets on the Perseus have a specific quirk where they turn faster than others, even though they're bigger, or they can the guns that you put on the size 3 mounts are actually they actually have higher velocities when they fire compared to others, that kind of thing. Like little bonuses that they may have individually.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean I think that'd be great addition, especially to give some. We kind of get some of that in the individual ships, but it's probably very true that like you don't feel the MSR being that fast ship that it's supposed to be. Like I get that in boost mode it's maybe a little faster, closer to like an intercept speed, but yeah, I mean we don't really get their lore coming through to the game mechanics, and I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it as well. Like, because I always like to point out, because when we talk about lore, people go, oh, well, the story says this and that. It's like the story is there to support the gameplay. And the best example of that is Drake, especially the Cutlass. The Cutlass matches Drake's lore. It matches the gameplay purpose of the Drake Cutlass in the first place, and all of the aesthetics are wrapped up into it. So it's the perfect synergy of what CIG wanted to make, what they did make, and how it fits in the wider universe. If that
You
makes
mean
sense.
that Drake only makes the cutlass and variants of it?
That, but like for instance, you see a cutlass, you know it's Drake. Nobody
Yeah.
questions the cutlass is not a Drake ship. You know it's a Drake ship. It handles like a Drake ship. It operates like a Drake ship. And if you know the lore of Drake and you find the cutlass, you go, oh, I know what this is. This if you've never seen a cutlass, but you've just read about the cutlass or read about Drake, you could go, that's got to be a cutlass. That's got to be Drake. Or if you hear Drake, you say, oh, that's the Drake. That's the Drake Buccaneer. You go, yep, nope, that makes sense. 100%. I understand that. And there are a few other ones that are getting close that CIG does that. Like Crusader's up there. Kruger right now is in the throes of it. Argo, similar. But then there's ships like in Crusader, it's like the Mercury. Like the Mercury Star Runner doesn't make a lot of sense in Crusader as it is. Neither does like the Ares. So like having to
The A1.
the A1, yeah. So like making these ships match the sort of what CIG seems to want them to match because they wrote the stories to surround them like that in terms of like how their aesthetics match their gameplay is not quite there yet. For those of you who don't know, like Crusader is basically like Drake if Drake had standards. They're rugged, they're super easy to work on. Everyone loves them because of that. They're super simple to maintain. They don't require a lot of fuss, and they're very tough. That's the sort of motto of Crusader, but you don't really see that.
They're not.
You know,
They're not again like the C1 is one of the easiest to kill ships, arguably in the entire game because of its low HP, low shields, and high profile.
Yeah.
I think in general, maybe a bit of a tangent, but I think in general, most of the Crusader ships don't match the Crusader lore,
Yeah.
like at all, because of, they're supposed to be this like peace-loving, sort of like very, you could nearly say current day terms, woke organization.
They're very
very-
they're like a 503c that builds ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're nonprofit that builds ships is their whole thing. But they don't really feel like that. They feel like if General Dynamics was a 503 or Rheinmetall was a 503c. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean you're a 503c?
Yeah.
We make
Most of the
tanks,
ships-
but we give all of our money away to charity. Like, what?
It's for the kids.
Yeah.
It's for the kids.
Kids love shooting tanks, so it's
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's
What,
ridiculous.
what
that,
8-year-old didn't want their own tank?
In my opinion, it's just ridiculous that
I'm
Crusader
not
doesn't have
saying
like
anything.
miners, and that Crusader is the only ship with bombers, and that in my opinion is just like how the heck did that even happen?
And I think
Yeah.
the Quirks is a way of doing that. Things that you only see in certain ships, which can benefit that.
Hammerhead with higher bullet velocity since it's anti-fighter, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's got hardened armor on the front, so it can smash through things if it needs to.
Yeah, pursues maybe as well, stuff like that. But also I do feel like with quirks, especially for like weapon specific balance, I feel like that shouldn't be the way to start off the balancing, if that makes any sense. I
Yeah,
feel like it
that's like
should
a-
first be
Go ahead.
more focused on components and weapon sizes before we CIG does anything with quirks, because that is going to complicate balancing to such like ridiculous extent
for
because
sure.
of the amount of weapons and ships. So yeah.
Mhm.
Not to harp back on MechWarrior too much, but MechWarrior does that a lot. Where like there are plenty of builds of certain mechs that have specific additions, like PDCs or electronic warfare suites to like prevent people from seeing you. But so they swap out some things here and there, and so there's some builds of certain or some versions of certain chassis that have specific quirks that make them better at these specific things. And so you could do that, but like they still need to be balanced in their own chassis. Like a Wolverine still needs to be a Wolverine, even though it might be better if you slap 2 AC2s on that thing and run it like a sniper build. It still needs to also be balanced like a Wolverine and have some of those benefits and discounts of like of it being a medium mech in terms of its own style. So yeah, quirks are nice, but I agree. They need to balance everything properly and then bring that in there. So
Right. And I think in a certain sense they are already doing those kind of quirks, especially if you look at the ships that they use a lot, of course. The Phoenix, for example, is the only colony, or to be honest, the only like smaller size ship. Of course, it's large, but not that large as like an Idris or 890 that has a PDC, and I think that is very like sensible for the ship it is, because it is weaker than the other colonies in like armor and stuff, because it's a touring ship. But a touring ship is expected to have like an escort, and then the highest risk for that kind of ship in the balancing that I think CRG is trying to get towards is torpedoes and missiles. And then to me, I feel like they are heading in that kind of direction, at least to a certain degree.
yeah.
So
Which I think is
what's
good.
interesting about that, I'm just going to check before I open my mouth. The HP of a Connie Phoenix is more HP
Yeah, it's
than
currently higher than the.
Paladin.
Really?
Yeah, I was about to
Yep.
say.
Woo!
What?
Mhm.
You want to know something even crazier? You know the Terrapin, guys? The
Yeah.
Terrapin has more HP than the 890 jump.
That seems a
The
little. That's insane. That the Terrapin should have more
That's
HP
insane.
than a medium ship. It should have like a
That's
large ship. But I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah,
insane.
but the Terrapin has more HP than the 890. It fits inside of the hangar of the
Of the
890.
890.
What are we talking about? It is absolutely just stupid. Yeah, it's just stupid. It's crazy. It's the
Especially,
total HP, to be clear. The vital is lower on the
yeah.
Terrapin, the vital body part. But since the vital body part is so small, it's still, in practice, has more HP.
Because you're not hitting those vitals as much. So
Yeah, it's hard to hit those vital body parts because it's so tiny.
this is a topic we actually talked about a little bit. I think we were muted when we were talking about it in the break, but which is Joan of Arctis asked any engineering gameplay in Squadron 42. No. Any engineering gameplay is there specifically to support the narrative and to like problem solve. So probably more like any engineering gameplay is there is designed as a what is it called? Puzzle rather than an actual gameplay. So you were gonna say something, Nick?
No, I was going to say the same thing. Like outside of them potentially having to protect the interest that you're in, that would probably be it. And to your point, it's going to be part of like, hey, learn how to do this, or part of like a cinematic episode. But no, it's probably not something you're actively having to do on your fighter in between missions. Though it would be kind of cool to say, like, if they allow various levels of customization, like we've been talking about. So, like, between missions, you can kind of customize and go do these things, and obviously talk to people, go work on your ship. Like, that would kind of be cool. But I doubt it's going to be at the level we're doing now.
They hinted at it a little bit because your personal mechanic who at one point when like the vertical slice, she comes up to you and says, I made the changes you requested to your ship and all that kind of stuff. So it might be like a hey, yeah, have your mechanic do stuff for you. But Squad 42 equals missed. No, Squad 42 equals Half-Life mixed with Halo. Like it's clear that they take massive inspirations from Half-Life with their puzzle mechanics. And anyone who's played Half-Life 2, I guess you could say, knows there's like half that game is just puzzles rather than shooting things. So physics puzzles. All right. Gin and Tonic asks, CIG has come up with the stupid idea that coolers won't work in an evacuated ship. In my humble opinion, no ship should knowingly enter combat with atmosphere in ship. Okay, why can't I instead run a pure nitrogen atmosphere in my ship before I go into battle? Because that's a lot of work on CIG's part to determine the different types of atmospheric conditions. That gets to a complexity where like that could happen after 1.0, but the balance right now is about like you want coolers to cool things, and if it's no atmosphere, then the coolers are going to have to work harder to cool things, which because naturally if you have atmosphere, then there will be some sort of radiation or not radiation. I always forget the different
Convection.
ways. Yeah, convection and conduction. going on, at least convection going on inside the ship. You're getting hot inside the ship because thing's getting hot, but it's at least getting off of the component. So
Yeah, and I mean,
Mhm.
we have a bunch of planets in the game with outposts with fire on planets that have no oxygen.
yeah,
So I doubt CIG will really do that. Although I do kind of agree that it would be ridiculous for larger combat multi-crew ships to run into combat with oxygen-based atmospheres on board.
yeah, yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
rule of cool, I guess.
Look, we all assume maybe we don't actually breathe oxygen in the game. Who knows?
Yeah. So coolers are dumping heat
know.
into the ship. That's fucking stupid. Everything's gonna be releasing heat.
Well, I think the coolers aren't really. They are supposed to not be dumping heat into the ship. It's just that life support still makes a difference in the cooling of the ship, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like all the components just generate a bunch of heat, and if that heat doesn't go away from the components, the atmosphere helps a bit, but the
Yes.
coolers still work on their own and
Right.
radiate out of the ship. At least that's what I think the idea is, because otherwise, why do we have these massive IR signatures?
Yeah. Yeah. The gameplay purpose is clear that coolers kind of work like refrigeration units. Like you pump the heat into the cooler, and the cooler is like a heat sink where it just sucks all the heat into it. But eventually, it will. We don't know when CIG, but eventually it'll have to be overheated or overworked where it can't take in all the heat. So some of the heat is being transferred through the atmosphere. Is that actually happening? I don't know. I don't know if CIG has that physics that detailed, but I imagine that's their argument, and the way that they were thinking about it is that if you evacuate the atmosphere, the coolers will have to work harder, but the coolers weren't designed to work without atmosphere in the ship, so they'll overheat or they'll overwork and they can't actually pull all the heat out, which then causes all of the other ships to overheat. So
Yeah. Yeah, life support being offline does make a difference in cooling at the moment, but
Yeah.
it's the coolers are significantly more important,
oh yeah,
or like impactful, I guess, on the cooling of the ship. But if you have no atmosphere, the components do generate more heat or like cool down less, I guess.
all right.
Mm.
The answer is when we get Maelstrom and more dynamic breaches and stuff like that into ships. I imagine that pumping your atmosphere out will work, but it'll always be a trade-off of like you have to be in the suit to be able in suits, and suits will have their own limited oxygen supply, probably more limited than they are now. Plus, it'll cause your resources to like you may have to shut down or lower the power on certain components so that they don't overheat as much, and so it's all about trade-offs. Honestly, it's one of those things that like where CIG actually seemed like they thought about the trade-offs. It's like, oh, this is actually rock paper scissors gameplay here, rather than just like, it's cool, you know. All right. Jaded Cynic asks, this is not a real question, but an example in the real world is but an example in a real question. This is okay. I see what she's doing. Okay, never mind. Rec asks Rec on YouTube asks, do you think there will be a Carrick and Hammerhead will have their health pools increased?
God, I hope so. Like, and it was actually one of the things I was working on the side, just as a science experiment. Like the ratio of weight to size, and then as a characteristic of the total HP pool is just massively messed up, to the point where there's no viable reason to bring those ships out other than for fun. Like there so many cases where it's just like, I think it's like I think it was the Hammerhead was about 50% in that kind of weight to distance metric compared to I think when I did this was the Polaris, and yet it has like 5% of the total HP pool of what a Polaris has. So it doesn't make sense. And I think that it would really behoove them, if they're not already, to move all of these things out of whatever spreadsheet they've got into a shared spreadsheet, and that way they could start working on it, because it's just numbers at the end of the day. Like, it's not like if they've hard coded this, we're worse. But you should have a bunch of people working on these numbers.
Someone's bringing up that when Maelstrom comes in, HP goes away. Why worry about it? Because I don't think HP will ever go away. There'll always be some levels of HP somewhere, even if it's like the HP of armor or something like that. So,
yeah, and also Maelstrom, when Maelstrom comes in, yes, but we're currently playing the game.
Yeah.
And I think changing some values shouldn't be. Of course, it will probably be more complicated than I envision it to be, but still, with the amount of people, especially over the last 2 years playing this game and the year of playability and such, I think ships that are larger should be more viable. Like, for example, once again, as you mentioned, the Carrack, it has half the HP of the Terrapin. It has about the same HP as a Vanguard. How?
So on HP will split to the Maelstrom sections. They do that already now. There are sections that make up how the HP plays out. I mean, when we talk about total HP pool, it's kind of when an aggregates it together. But it's not as if
or was it what we call it? It was not viability.
Vital?
It was viable component or vital.
Vital.
Yeah.
HP versus whole HP, total whole HP, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really good call out. But I mean, it's not as if Maelstrom is going to provide like in individual 5 by 5 feet sections. Like Maelstrom is going to help us understand what that might look like and how it feels. But it's still going to have a numerical system that sits underneath it that drives the deterministic logic. So we have to think about HP.
Yeah.
Right. And if they are fundamentally showing us right now that they don't like, it's a big ship, it should probably have more oomph behind it. It's like, oof, okay, guys, like, please get that so that when it comes time to think about it in Maelstrom, we don't have to then wait after Maelstrom to get what we really want.
Yeah, the current balancing just seems to be based on the vital body HP, which in most cases is somewhat okayish. Like, the Terrapin I mentioned has a lot of HP, but the total HP is just crazy of that shit. The vital body part is significantly lower. But in practice, a ship with more HP will just survive longer with total body part HP, because something like a Carrack having 70k or 60k, I think, vital body part HP, although it's triple or quadruple what a Terrapin has, because it's so easy to hit that massive vital body part, which is literally the entire body of the Carrack, because the only other two like HP parts are the side wings where the turrets are.
Yep.
It's so easy to hit it that even you will still kill a Carrack faster than a Terrapin in most cases, unless you're insanely accurate in your fire on the Terrapin.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, we got 3 more questions left. Wild Lee Coyote asks, do you think we will ever have distortion rockets? Small damage but loads of electric tail damage to shields and components? Maybe? I mean, it's just a matter of...
rockets?
Like EMP rockets, but not really EMP rockets, distortion rockets. So like as you hit a target, it'll like displace a certain amount of distortion damage to certain areas. Yeah, ion torpedoes,
To be honest, I don't think distortion necessarily. I do think maybe EMP, but who knows, man?
Yeah.
Like the entire idea of like mines, I feel like that plays a lot into like the mines of the Nautilus kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't see CIG getting there anytime soon. I have no idea how they will do that.
And I mean, we are just being introduced to damage cones because of ballistic weapons. I'd have to imagine missiles need to go through an equal thing of these magical HP numbers we keep talking about.
Yeah.
Which is why they're critically important to focus on. So yeah, I mean, it will be really interesting to see when these things play out, like the missile viability, the differences, cross sections. I mean, same kind of things in terms of, well, we have all these EM missiles and we don't have enough noise to get rid of them. Like it seems like they've overloaded IR flares versus chaff. Like all these things need to kind of be reviewed, but hopefully they can start to kind of think of what are missiles in comparison to ballistics. Like, I mean, a size 5 ballistic is basically the size of a size 1 missile. So you would think that they'd have the same kind of penetration, but they don't.
Gin and Tonic asked a question like, is there actually any functional difference between distortion and EMP? I think so. I think distortion lasts longer because like you can just shut down and restart like a part if it's been EMP'd. But if you but the distortion is like it lingers in the component to like shut it down for longer, and it can like effectively shut it down forever if it builds enough distortion damage to it. It doesn't destroy.
EMPs do just do distortion damage.
Do they just
if
do
I'm not
distortion
mistaken.
damage? Okay.
I think so. Could be wrong on that, to be fair, but I do think they do just do. Yeah, if I'm looking at SP Viewer as well, they literally just do distortion damage. They just do a pretty like good amount.
All right. Yeah, so I guess it's there's no functional difference between them other than I guess EMP is like an explosion versus the distortion is more of a direct attack hit like neutron. All right. Well, Skype got a new question in there, so we've got 3 more still. This is a good one, and it's interesting to talk about. I think I want everyone to ask to try to tackle this one, so I'll ask Axis this as well. Ground Flagon asks question. I mean, this is good faith. As someone who has played Star Citizen for 1 year, how does Squadron 42 affect multiplayer for those of us mainly interested in the sandbox aspect? Do you have any idea, Axis?
That's a really good question. Will it have any multiplayer like arenas or anything?
Not that I know of. The main thing that they're
So I have a funny. It's going to be really interesting to see if they follow up with what they committed in the Kickstarter.
Okay.
Because in the Kickstarter, they offered up co-op.
Mm-hmm.
It's listed there. I think I found it. We actually posted in that Squadron 42 Discord of like, the community is not making this up. It was originally suggested. I don't think we're going to get it.
Well, they did say almost pretty quickly when Aaron came in that they were going to, if they do it, they were going to do it as an after added feature, but they had to pull it from the original feature list. So,
yeah.
The one thing I will say that's important is the systems that Squadron 42 developed are directly related to Star Citizen. So all of the systems that Squadron 42 is made for Squadron will be in Star Citizen. That's the main impetus, main impact that Squadron has on Star Citizen, is that it was sort of the testing ground for a lot of things, including the HUD, the flight mechanics, what we're talking about, engineering. Even though engineering is not really in Squadron, the elements that we see in Star Citizen of engineering is also in Squadron, including Maelstrom. Maelstrom was developed for Squadron and then ported into Star Citizen. The AI system in Squadron is being used in Star Citizen. They're effectively the same game, but the difference is that Squadron is a single-player game and Star Citizen is an MMO. So the actual overlap is more of what if you took an MMO, stripped out the MMO parts, added in a bunch of cutscenes, you got a single player game. Or what if you took a single player game, stripped out all the cutscenes and the story driven areas, and then like a specific story points, and then attach it to an MMO. They're sort of the same game. And at one point, you could literally, if not even now, you can launch them in the same client. Like they're quite. Even Star Citizen's backend is used for Squadron. So like Squadron, the way it works is it builds when you launch it, it launches a server inside your computer, and then your client acts as a player would be in a server. So you're actually interacting with a server. So object container streaming and all that kind of stuff is used in the virtual server as you're moving around in it to save space. So
yeah, many games do this. To be fair, even Minecraft does it that way.
Yeah.
Single player Minecraft is also technically a server, which is
I want
strange.
to say Halo is a similar concept. The original Combat Evolved, like the multiplayer and the campaign had similar elements. There were differences here and there, obviously, but
I want to say some of the early Elder Scrolls games did the same thing too. where like
Mhm.
they worked where like because it's so big they had to just load into memory a lot of stuff, just pull it out.
Daggerfall.
Yeah, where it just couldn't keep it on the screen, so they had to load it in. So they did a similar situation where they're like pulling you are a client, and then this is the server that has all the information that's tracking it. I could be entirely wrong there, but I remember when it was even being explained that's what they were doing with Squadron. Even CIG developers like this is not new. People have done this before. It works. So
Yeah, one more thing I think that would change about like the multiplayer environment, or might change, depending on how like successful I guess Squadron 42 is on the more
Yes.
general gaming community. Although there is a good chance that if they don't do a large marketing push and release it close to GTA, I don't know how successful they'll
don't
really
don't
be.
don't push
But
that. Don't poke that stick. It's
I
that's a
know, I know, I know. We shouldn't talk about it. Either way, I
Well,
do think that, if it is successful in the general gaming community, the larger like sandbox community may like also receive an influx of more, well, I guess general gamers, more casual gamers,
Yeah.
and that will probably change the community up a bit again.
That's true.
So just one piece on that, because I mean, there is definitely. I think we as a community have looked at Star Citizen and what they've been doing as an elongated marketing campaign for Star Citizen.
Mhm.
Like, there might not be as long of a duration. That does not mean that the intensity is not higher or above of everything. I mean, if you think about the amazing work they do for just trying to market Star Citizen,
Yeah, with ships.
think of that on
such. Yeah.
steroids
Right.
for Squadron 42, just maybe not over 10 years. Like, because,
Yeah.
you know,
I have
We'll
my
have to see.
concerns based off of Chris's own statement because
Yeah, same.
he seemed to imply that they had done enough pre stuff so they could just use that pre stuff as marketing material for Star Citizen for Squadron, and I was like, no, please no, please no, please no. Nobody remembers the video they saw 2 years ago. We can't really use
no,
that.
no. Yeah, that's
Yeah, like I really want them to do 30-second commercials and on YouTube and all the like the get some of the celebrities to do go play Squadron with me and that kind of thing.
yeah. Oh,
So,
I'm sure that they will. I don't think that they're going to do it for the entirety of the year.
No.
I think that there's yeah.
yeah. All right. I pulled the wrong thing here. We've got 2 more questions. Wildly Coyote asks, how do you think escape pods are going to work in Star Citizen? Will they be able to fly to an outpost or will they just be static? Bob, what do you think?
Jeez. Well, I kind of expect CIG to just have a like, oh, you go in the escape pod and the screen turns to black and you respawn somewhere,
Mhm.
at least for the initial implementation. I don't think they will ever be able to fly like anywhere. I think they will have to be, you will need to be picked up by players or NPCs, I think. At least that will probably be their long-term goal, but that's going to be such a like, I mean, maybe if they do it with NPCs, it can be done pretty quickly. But I think it's going to be or like a teleportation mechanic, or you get picked up probably by NPCs, because with players it will just take too long, realistically.
Nick?
Yeah. I mean, let's first see if we can get the caterpillar to disconnect and reconnect.
That was my thought on it when I
Yeah.
heard about that thing. So I was like, yeah, that's the escape pod technology. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would say if they get that working, sky's the limit. If they don't, it's just a quick back to respawn. I would agree.
Axis, any idea of how do you think escape pods are going to work? Are you going to be able to fly them? Are they just going to float?
It depends on the situation, I think. Trying to get my I'm using push to talk, obviously.
Okay.
For maybe there might be different classes of escape pod depending on the ship. Like higher tech ships might have limited navigation and movement, maybe
Okay.
to the nearest habitable planet, certainly not through jump points.
Yeah.
Maybe space stations or the vicinity of them. But like Drake, obviously, you're going to be in the area. You're not going to be able to get.
Does Drake even have escape pods?
No, No.
No.
Well,
No,
Yeah,
I'm
Caterpillar.
talking about the detachable command pod.
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Caterpillar,
That does count
the
as like
Caterpillar.
that is that life pod. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thankfully, those have shields and guns. So Drake is pretty smart there.
Well,
Ish.
yeah.
I do think that that escape pods might have some limited maneuverability, but I do think we're talking about the duality systems, how like CIG likes to do systems that like serve multiple purposes. Salvage and repair, hacking and engineering are kind of opposites. I think the escape pods and obviously the command pods are very similar, but I also think that the cryopods, the bounty hunting cryopods, if you get caught by a bounty hunter and you get put into a pod,
Yep.
one of the things they said is you could just sort of give up button, and then you would just get transported to prison, and so you just wake up in prison rather than having to like wait for you to get rescued, or you could wait for someone to rescue. And I can see that same system being like, do you want to wait for someone to rescue you, or do you just want to just give up and you'll get taken to like not the closest station, but like the last station you were in or something like that. So it's like a far away, like you'll be far away from where you were. So if you lost anything, you're not going to go collect it. I can see something like that, where like it's
Drake's will just basically be the go back to your spawn point.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think any of
Grind
them,
you up.
I don't think any of them will like fly realistically. I mean, unless CAG changes up how it works. But as someone mentioned in the chat as well, for in case of the Idris, the Javelin, and the 890, at least as far as I know, the escape pods are just Argo MPUV pods.
Yeah.
And even Argo MPUV itself doesn't have a quantum drive, so I don't think escape pods will be quantum traveling around or anything.
Yeah, but I could see them being like players being like, I don't want to die, I don't want to have to respawn and lose all my stuff, so I'm going to or respawn way back to lose progress. So I'm going to wait for my friend to show up and get me. And
Yeah.
I also know that I can guarantee you, I know what they're going to be used for once they're functional. If CIG doesn't give us drop pods, they're going to become drop pods. People will just use them as drop pods.
Well, and I mean, can we please just get when we eject like a flight suit so that we don't just tumble to the
Parachute or
ground?
something.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
sort
Yeah,
of
that'd be
parachute, some sort of
wonderful.
stopping.
Give drop pod.
Like one of those like squirrel flight suits, you know what I mean, with like the wings between your
Yeah.
arms. Like Battlefield 2042, I think, has one of those.
I, for one,
Yeah.
subscribe to the edition of civilian drop pods versus military.
And
I mean, come on.
just having a civilian version of it. Yeah, I also think like a suicide backpack, and that sounds awful, but suicide burn backpack, where like is like as you get closer to the ground, it will automatically fire, or you can control the jet so it like arrests your movement. So you're not like gonna be bouncing around with this jetpack, but it's like I'm about to hit the ground. I gotta wait for it and time it so that I hit the jets, kind of like the Geo. You can time it, or you can kind of like just slow your descent and then land. So you might like hurt your
You
legs.
like burn
but-
your legs.
Yeah.
We need 40K drop pods. Let me put my
We do.
ICD in it or 3 ICD. Like just yes.
Helldivers.
Yes.
Just Helldivers.
Yeah.
ODSTs, baby. Yeah. They exist in lore. The nails, but CIG said they don't want to give us nails, so.
It's
I
gonna be
used to
so
play-
funny with base building.
Blood Angels and our Land Raider could deep strike. It was wonderful. Just give me that.
In the latest edition of 40K, they just released a detachment where you can deep strike a Land Raider. So you can deep strike up to like 5 different things. So it's like, all right, Land Raiders and dreadnoughts. It's time for you to deep strike deep into the enemy territory.
Okay, Wile E. Coyote has a good strategy. Put all your loot in an escape pod and hope it don't get shot down because it has no life signs.
There we go.
Okay.
The Star
There
Wars
are
style.
I mean,
places called
That's how the Death
drops
Star
on
plans made it
you.
to them.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
Why
Dude.
not?
All right, last question comes from Escape, who asks, question, would you like to see better weapon variety, like laser gatlings of size 1 through 5, or ballistic repeaters beyond size 3? Yes, but I would much prefer ammo variation. I feel like it's better to do
with you.
ammo variation than more ranges of weapons. Because if I could get ballistic repeaters 1 through 3, but one of those options for those ballistic repeaters is to get anti-armor rounds. Then I can hit targets higher, that are bigger than me. Then I can do more damage, but so I can go through harder targets, or flak rounds, or incendiary rounds, or plasma rounds, or whatever, like stuff like that. And you can do something similar with like lasers, just have different like different wavelength laser, ammo or whatever you want to do. They can do it's sci-fi. They can do whatever, but just give us more tools, more scalpels to do surgery rather than just giving us more bandages to stop the bleeding kind of thing. I don't know how to put that, but yeah.
The like one weapon type I really feel like we need though is a weapon or like laser beams for turrets for like anti-fighter, larger anti-fighter ships. So only ships with enough power capacity can actually run those. You need a large power plant kind of deal. So we have some kind of beam lasers because I feel like that's one of the best ways to just balance smaller and bigger ships.
What happened to the year of the beam?
I don't know. I don't know. They're just talking about the one beam. The one beam.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Idris K, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe technically
the way that felt was like beam weapons were something we were going to get. Like,
and it just didn't happen.
Yes. I mean, more flavors of like a variety of types of weapons. I would also say for being a sci-fi game, there's not a lot of alien influence in a number of. I mean, yes, I understand that there's like we have the Banu Defender guns and then the Sentakioi or guns that we've seen, but like
2 seconds. Keep going.
Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of influence from the various different cultures that we seem to have already been engaged with. So I feel like that's
plasma rocket in lore from the Xi'an and something else. Now that you bring that up, Nick, I can't remember what it is, but it's energy based, like a concussive plasma rocket. So like it charges up, what's a good comparison from Gundam? Like a hyper bazooka shot?
Yeah.
Like where it charges up and then it hits. It's not a beam rifle. It's more like a charges up and hits with a big boom and splash damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of weapons. I agree that we could have a lot more like alien influence. I mean, I guess they are kind of gonna bring that in with like more Van Duel like plasma based weapons, but in general, just more like original, I guess. Like the Xi'an have all this like anti-gravity tech. Wouldn't they be able to use that anti-gravity tech to accelerate stuff to have a thing similar to a railgun, but kind of different, where like they have other emissions? Because a railgun right now has like these high EM emissions, and then I feel like there's a lot of options there. I agree, but I feel like beam weapons should be the main sort of deal, and then like ammunition kind of differences. Because I mean, I personally don't feel like we necessarily need laser gatlings, although they would be fun. I don't think that's on the short term. I prefer beam weapons and ammunition differences.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was the last question. For those of you watching live, I'm going to take a few minutes just to get ready, but we're going to be continuing to stream because we're raising money for Child's Play, and I'll be helping out Force Science with their Combat for a Cause, which I'm sure is going on like right now, and I'm super late. Well, that's super late because I think they're starting in like 40 minutes. But I do want to thank Axis0096. Thank you to Nick and Build and Play for coming in and joining us here to talk a little bit about engineering. If you did enjoy this, hit that follow button. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the like button. And of course, comment down below your thoughts, your own questions, or your own thoughts on anything we talked about. We'd love to hear thoughts and opinions. If you're listening to this on the podcast version because we release on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, all of the different platforms. Make sure that you leave a rating and comment as well. I don't do that. I'll say it a lot, but I try to release this early. So, like for those of you who are on the podcast version, you're listening to this like literally the day after. Whereas on YouTube, I try to it goes out a little bit later. So I have to break it up because YouTube doesn't like dropping 3-hour videos. They prefer 1 hour or so each. So, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.